Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Eric Johnson.
And I'm Tracy Berry. Thank you for joining us in the Council of CI Fellows newsroom as we take a look back at the events that helped shape CI in 2025 and also look ahead to what's in store for CI in the community in 2026.
We're going to begin with our news review. 2025 was a year that highlighted several important events related to competitive intelligence, from corporate espionage done badly to the use of AI to help find bad guys. We present the following stories for review and discussion. A quick disclaimer: the following three stories related to corporate espionage are active lawsuits, and our presentation of the facts around these lawsuits should not be misconstrued as the opinion or findings of the council. Tracy?
Thanks, Eric. The first news item probably needs very little introduction in the CI community, but let's do a quick recap of the key allegations in the Deal Rippling dispute. Rippling, a workforce management and HR software company, filed suit in U.S. federal court last March, alleging that rival platform Deal engaged in a scheme to obtain Rippling's confidential information. According to Rippling's complaint, a former Rippling employee was recruited while still employed there and allegedly accessed internal systems thousands of times to gather sales pipeline data, pricing information, competitive playbooks, as well as internal communications related to deals involving Deal. Rippling claims this conduct amounts to trade secret misappropriation and unfair competition. Deal denies wrongdoing and has launched its own legal action and public response. Deal alleges that a person it describes as Rippling's competitive intelligence operative created or used a fake customer identity to access Deal's platform repeatedly, downloading internal documents such as contracts, benefits, policies, and pricing, and using support channels to obtain additional proprietary information. Deal contends this activity was directed or overseen by Rippling, their leadership, and characterizes it as a coordinated corporate espionage effort. Both companies assert that their own conduct was lawful and that the other side orchestrated an improper intelligence gathering scheme, and the core allegations remain unresolved in ongoing litigation. Eric?
Turning to APAC, U.S. authorities have issued multiple indictments against Huawei Technologies and some of its affiliates, accusing the Chinese telecommunications company of technology theft and fraud. The charges include allegations that Huawei and its employees tried to steal trade secrets from U.S. companies, such as source code and testing technology related to networking equipment and mobile devices, in order to gain an unfair competitive advantage in global telecom markets. Prosecutors say some employees were allegedly rewarded through internal bonus programs for successfully obtaining confidential information from competitors. The company has publicly denied the criminal accusations, stating that it operates independently from the Chinese government and complies with applicable laws. The trial is set to begin on May 4th. Tracy?
And from the world of financial technology and corporate law, a dramatic legal clash has erupted between rival 401k administration platforms Human Interest and Guideline. In a federal lawsuit filed in Utah this past October, Human Interest has accused Guideline of running what it describes as a coordinated corporate espionage operation aimed at siphoning off proprietary intelligence. According to the complaint, brothers Brian and Brandon Sterry allegedly ran a months-long Sterry takeover, downloading partnership leads, customer information, and internal strategy documents, and then passing that intelligence to a third brother, Arik, who worked at Guideline. Human Interest claims the data flow was authorized and overseen by senior executives at Guideline, including its CEO and CFO, adding fuel to the dispute. Guideline, for its part, has firmly rejected the allegations, calling the claims false and without merit, and has vowed to defend itself vigorously in court. Legal experts say the case could hinge on evidence of data misuse, breach of trade secret laws, and whether any executives knowingly encouraged improper information gathering. The case is being watched as another example of startup era competitive intelligence crossing the line into alleged trade secret theft and insider misuse of employer data. Eric, with the last three items that we had, all pertaining to, as we alluded to early on, corporate or competitive intelligence gone bad. What do you think some of the key points we can draw from these three stories?
Well, Tracy, as we talked about in looking at these in preparation for our event today, the thing that sort of sticks in my mind is if my mother would be embarrassed by it if it appeared on the front page of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, actually was the original example, then you probably shouldn't do it. And I think that's sort of my take even still today with all of these examples that were shared this morning is that all of these examples were completely unforced errors, preventable. And I think one of the key takeaways for me is having an ethics policy in place that would govern the types of behaviors that you see cited in these particular matters. How about
Yeah,
you?
I have to agree. The code of ethics, I think, needs to come front and center in a CI program, really on in a CI program's uh, life, and that it needs to be incorporated into something that's sponsored or created by corporate counsel, and it needs to be evangelized across the company. One thing that I've always tried to instill in people when I'm evangelizing about CI is that if someone gets their hands on something from another company and it's labeled confidential, I know it's a really hard thing to do, but it really needs to be destroyed immediately before you read it.
Exactly. And I think, to that extent, even if it doesn't say confidential on it, if it should be confidential, then I think the spirit of the law kicks in that at that point and overrides the letter of the law, so to speak. And so you can split hairs over whether the word proprietary is the synonym for confidential. I think it is, by the way. But there's all sorts of indications on that material that would not make it wise for you to use it. And between the two of us, we've probably got, half a century of experience in this business. And I think I've never seen those circumstances work out positively when people have stepped across the line and then gotten busted. So the best policy is not to step across the line in the first place.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, let's move on to the next one, Eric.
Very good. Let me get back to my script here. This is about the European Union's using advanced tools to detect anti-competitive behavior. And across Europe, competition watchdogs are quietly reinventing how they hunt cartels and illegal information gathering and sharing. Instead of waiting for insiders to come forward, agencies are increasingly turning to large-scale data scraping and advanced analytics to spot red flags on their own. Officials collect and process huge volumes of publicly available and quasi-public data, including prices, tender results, announcements, and sometimes even online platform activity, and feed that information into screening models designed to detect suspicious patterns. These tools can highlight parallel price moves, unusual synchronization and bidding behavior, or repeated market outcomes that are difficult to explain by chance, prompting closer scrutiny or full investigations. The approach marks a shift away from a system built mainly around leniency applications, where a cartel member confesses exchange for reduced penalties, toward a more proactive, technology driven enforcement model. Regulators describe this as building an early warning system for collusion, combining traditional investigative work with techniques more familiar to market intelligence teams and data scientists. Agencies still value whistleblowers and leniency, but the message to companies is that even without an insider, their digital footprint may provide enough signals for authorities to open a case.
Yeah, I think this development is really noteworthy because it quietly rewrites the playbook for cartel enforcement in Europe, making detection more proactive and data driven and a lot less dependent on someone coming forward and volunteering information.
That's right. I think the idea of whistleblowers is something that many large institutions have tried to dissuade, I think, or at least discourage. And yet, I think in many places around the world, that's still a very and probably the only way of knowing about bad behavior. I think it highlights for me too some of the cultural differences and the expectations around even things like trade secrets and confidentiality. To our Huawei example earlier, many of the practices that are done in other places around the world outside the United States and Europe, these types of practices are not anything unusual. And so I think it really highlights the need to be proactive on the part of companies when thinking about how this might look to the regulator if they did receive an enforcement action that way.
Yeah, thank you. Our last item in our news roundup is a story about Intel. once the undisputed leader in computer chips, and now they're fighting to stay relevant as competitors capitalize on shifts they failed to anticipate. For decades, Intel dominated PC and server processors, betting that traditional computers would remain the center of the tech industry. But growth shifted towards smartphones, cloud data centers, and AI accelerators, markets where Intel was slower and less focused than its rivals. Apple and the broader mobile industry standardized on ARM-based designs, sidelining Intel from smartphones and eventually enabling ARM chips to move into laptops and servers. And that shift reduced Intel's influence over the future direction of computing platforms. And then in graphics and AI, NVIDIA invested early in high performance standalone chips and built a powerful software ecosystem around them. As AI workloads exploded, NVIDIA's GPUs became the default choice while Intel remained a secondary player. At the same time, major tech companies, including Apple and cloud providers, began designing their own processors, often ARM-based, further weakening Intel's position as an industry default supplier. Internally, Intel lost its historic manufacturing edge after repeated delays in advanced chip production. By last July, as you may have read, Intel's CEO admitted that Intel has lost its competitive edge and was no longer among the top 10 companies in its industry. Intel has since announced layoffs and scaled back factory expansion plans in Europe and the US as it restructures. Today, Intel is narrowing its ambitions. It's focusing on mainstream PCs, selected data center workloads, and edge AI, while attempting to build a contract manufacturing business backed by US government support. Whether that strategy can close the gap with faster moving rivals remains an open question. The bottom line, Intel is no longer setting the pace. It's now one competitor among many in a semiconductor industry increasingly defined by specialization, scale, and speed. Arik, reading through that, how could Intel have made so many intelligence failures?
Well, Intel is an interesting company in the sense that one of the reasons they got to where they were in the 90s and into the aughts as the world's largest microprocessor manufacturer is because they underestimated their own competitiveness. And that's a big cultural history at Intel, is that they never really thought they were very good at anything, and that changed. I think that changed when really leadership changed. And there was a certain sense of arrogance about their position as microprocessor leader worldwide. And I think that really caught them by surprise when the shift from client server over to mobile and really power management became much more important for the devices that their chips ended up in than the clock speed metric that defined performance in the prior era. I think that happened again, unfortunately, as they got shifted into new definitions of performance by players like NVIDIA with GPUs over CPUs. And I just don't think they were able to catch up. I think it's the classic innovator's dilemma. And the ironic part of that is Clay Christensen used Intel Corporation very broadly to illustrate a company that can fight the innovator's dilemma. And I think this proves that we're all fallible that way.
Yeah, and I think too there are a lot of ways that Intel could have avoided this from a Monday morning quarterback point of view. I think there are several CI fundamentals that could have been deployed here. This would be a great case study for a webinar or a conference session all by itself. But I think something like scenario planning or wargaming, you got to wonder with the might of Intel, was that ever done? If so, what were the results? Could they have predicted this? Things of that nature. I find it very fascinating. But in the interest of time, let's go ahead and move forward.
Very good. In
So we're going to
2020,
move.
oh, sorry,
I was
after
just
you,
going to say
Tracy.
we're going to move to our new segment, which is a discussion of AI and CI in 2025 and beyond.
Very good. Well, in 2024, the big question in CI webinars and at conferences was whether AI was a threat to the profession, amid concerns that company leaders would conclude that machines could replace human analysts. And in 2025, we watched the narrative change as AI transitioned from perceived rival to a necessary tool in the tool set for competitive intelligence teams. AI agents and large language models are now the central operating system of many market and CI programs, always on engines that track rivals, surface weak signals, and feed insights directly into commercial decisions. These agents continuously scan competitor sites job postings, and news, and then turn those insights into sharp executive-ready briefings and alerts. Under the hood, LLMs are crunching huge volumes of filings, earnings calls, and social data to generate structured profiles, scenario summaries, and risk maps faster than human teams working alone. And instead of sitting in standalone dashboards, these tools are being wired into go-to-market workflows, proposing campaign angles based on competitor moves, flagging at-risk accounts after rival announcements, and drafting battle cards and sales messaging that update as markets shift. But there's a cautionary note in the fine print. Over-reliance on AI can introduce new bias, compliance, and governance headaches for organizations racing to plug AI into every corner of their CI stack. Our first guest to join us in discussing AI and CI in 2025 and beyond is Nimelan Paul, Assistant Professor of Strategy and Competitive Intelligence at Mercyhurst University. The Mercyhurst University Ridge College of Intelligence Studies is key in the development of the next generation of CI professionals. Professor Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Arik. Nice to be here.
Thank you, Nimelan. Nimelan, tell us how Mercyhurst is working with students and industry alike to ready intelligence practices and practitioners for the AI future that lies ahead of us.
Well, thanks, Arik, for that question. So at Mercyhurst, we teach CI, and as you very well know. So our focus is on teaching students the basics of CI, the basics of business and how businesses work with competitive intel. But at the same time, we also do not condone the use of AI. So we do bring in concepts of AI such as prompt engineering, starting with the basics. How do you even use Gen AI? And then we kind of transition into a higher levels of using AI. How do you create conceptual models? How do you look at leveraging some of the strategic frameworks that you can use AI to do it? And the advantage of being in a university like Mercyhurst is that I don't have to know everything to teach everything. So while my focus is primarily on teaching students the context, the business, the macroeconomy, the strategic frameworks, and so on, we do have experts on AI who teach how AI can be applied in business intel and intelligence studies. So we do have, for instance, a class on Intel, AI and intelligence, where professors focus on using AI for sentiment analysis. So students learn how to do some basic coding to look at reviews online and kind of create a sentiment analysis for a product or a company, or that can be, you can use that for anything that you can find on the internet, such as, scraping information, finding stuff. So students get a very balanced and holistic view of both the technical aspects of AI, how LLMs work, how they can get things done with some minor coding. And at the same time, they get the contextual knowledge of business, right? So without knowing what it is, if you just go blindly into AI, we have also seen, companies that we work with come back to tell us that the students' knowledge is just shallow. They're not going in depth because they're just asking Gen AI to summarize things for them. They're not really understanding what's going on. So we have a responsibility to ensure that that doesn't happen. So we don't prioritize AI and make AI the front and center of everything, but at the same time, we encourage the use of AI, right? And you asked a question about how we kind of work with industries. So that, I think, is a very unique aspect, and I'd kind of like to throw it out there to people on this forum as well. There are two ways in which we engage with industries, and the first is to kind of, we encourage a lot of guest speaker sessions. So we bring in experts from the field. All right. So, and I've been in CI for about 20 years, but then when the AI revolution took over, like I'm practically a newbie, and there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of good things in AI. I may not know everything. So we actively reach out to experts in the field, and if they're interested to come and speak to our students and share their expertise. That's one way in which we do it. And the second way in which we do it is that we have the strategic capstone projects at Mercyhurst, which is a semester-long project where students work with an industry partner. So they actually do consulting work, if you will, over an entire semester on a real live project for the client. So they actually actively engage with the client, set up an operating mechanism, project planning, and all the good stuff that they would do on their day one on the job, right? So they get that practice and they work on that. So this kind of also enables a very good industry interaction and ensuring that our analysts are industry ready when they go out into the world. So this year, especially, most of our strategic intel projects have been on AI, which kind of shows that where the industry is heading, right? So the last few years, we didn't really have that much on AI. But this year, almost every other project that we have got as a request from our clients have been on AI. So I hope that answers your question, and they're happy to stay around and answer anything.
Outstanding. Thank you, Professor Paul, for being here with us. I know you have to run, but hopefully your colleague Ted Stanich will be in the back half of the hour today with us. And I'm sure people can find you on mercyhurst.edu if they want to reach out and connect with you as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to just say one more thing.
Please.
I think most of the names here are very familiar. Like, from the time I started my journey at CI, these were the who's who in CI, and it's so nice to see all those names here again. So thank you so much and having me here today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nimilan, very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. And next up on our show, our next guest is Mindy Regnell. Mindy, I see you're out there. Hi, did I pronounce your last name right? I'm sorry, I didn't have time.
You did, you nailed it. Where people struggle is it's my company is pronounced Clavio.
Clavio. Thank you very much. You're head of market intelligence at Clavio, and you're going to bring to us an interesting and cautionary, I think, approach to the use of AI and CI. Mindy, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so nice to be here. I think, when I was chatting with Tracy about kind of the ways that I've gone through the journey around using AI, I'm pretty well known as being a little bit of a skeptic. And I was a late-ish adopter of AI within my field. And the reason for that was I think there's so much hype from a marketing perspective on AI can just replace and that you can have a 30-second battle card and AI can just update battle cards in the background. And I think what gets missed is the importance of a human in the loop, or as a friend of mine, Ben, over at HubSpot calls it expert in the loop, which is my preferred way of thinking about it. It's just general AI, and the data and where it's all coming from has a huge impact on the accuracy of AI. So if you're thinking about using AI, you need to, one, make sure that you're using the appropriate sources, right? I think we all generally know that if you're pulling in like the collective whole of the internet, the collective whole of the internet is maybe a little bit more trash than we like to think about. And so if I'm asking AI why we're better than a certain competitor, like, one, I don't care what some rando on G2 crowd said. And two, I don't care what a different competitor said. In fact, I don't even want to listen to their marketing half the time. I want to read their support docs. So I think making sure that you have the right source and you're applying the appropriate business context is just so critical. And that's a hill I'm willing to die on. I have zero interest in a 30-second battle card, and I have absolutely no interest in having a battle card that updates automatically. It's just so important to always make sure that it's accurate and that you've applied the correct and appropriate context to the information that you're giving to the field. I think we just see so much AI work slop today. In fact, it just happens on a regular basis. You get a doc that's an overview and you're like, yeah, this was totally AI generated, wasn't it? And it just hurts credibility. And I think that's why you need that expert in a loop.
Well, that actually begs the follow-up question that I have for you, Mindy, and that's, are there any places in the intelligence workflow or continuum where AI doesn't belong, where you wouldn't put it to work or it's not ready for prime time yet?
Yeah, so I would say I find that a lot of AI, if you're thinking about like applying a business context, take Gong AI, for example. Big Gong fan. I think Gong is great at being able to tell you what objections you're running into. I don't think Gong is the right source to make sure that those answers are correct and that you're putting your best foot forward. So while AI can be great at helping you really understand what you're running into, it's not necessarily the best at telling you what the correct answer is. It just kind of tells you what you're saying today, which is helpful and valuable information, but you need a real expert to do it. And I think just the idea of like a 30-second battle card, everybody should be very cautious. Like there are better, smarter ways to build a framework for how you think about your competitive landscape and to put competitors into buckets. That's kind of like my passion project, is a long tail competitive framework. And combining that plus support docs is a better solve than a 30-second battle card that's just scraping the internet.
Tremendous. Well, Mindy, I don't know if we have other questions coming from Tracy or other members of the audience, but fantastic to meet you. I look forward to seeing you get up and give some presentations on this topic at conferences and webinars around the industry. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Tracy?
Thanks, Arik. Next to join us to discuss the use of AI in CI programs is Zavin Gabriel. Zavo is the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Locus Robotics, and he's here to share his take on when and how to use AI in a CI program. Zavo, thanks for being here.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Zavo, you've described AI as creating a digital intern for CI work. What do you mean by that?
I think it's a lot of it's a lot of what Mindy said, which I was throwing 100 emojis in the chat when she was talking because I think she's absolutely right, and I share her opinions on this. That I think what I have found to be the best use of these Gen AI tools in my work is essentially as a think of it as hiring a very enthusiastic junior analyst who never sleeps and can go down rabbit holes faster than any human, but they are occasionally naive. They make things up, and it's crucial to remember that, and I think it's something that a lot of people forget because these tools can sometimes feel like magic, is that an LLM fundamentally is a stochastic system, not a deterministic system. And what I mean by that is that for the entire history of computing before ChatGPT, a computer program was deterministic, right? Given any particular set of inputs, you get exactly one output. And with a stochastic system, the output is probabilistic. It depends on it gives you the highest probability answer, not the single true correct answer. And I think a lot of the hype around these AI models is playing on that misperception that basically fundamentally all these Gen AI models, these chatbots I've heard the term used stochastic parrot, where what it's doing at its core is it is a next word guesser or a next character guesser. Given this enormous, incomprehensibly large set of training data that I've been trained on, and given the prompt that you gave me, what is the statistically most likely next character in my answer that will look right? And so this is why, for example, you get ghosting like ChatGPT. You get hallucinations. You also get things like ChatGPT saying sometimes in a response like it'll end a response by saying I'll get on that now. I'll do that now, because there's some, without actually going and doing the next thing, because there's some giant volume of emails in its training data where some subordinate to a boss ended their email by saying, I'll get right on that. And so it is a statistically more likely response. But anyway, to wrap up that tangent, with a deterministic system, if you give it a one particular set of inputs, you will get exactly one output. With a stochastic system, with an LLM, if you ask exactly the same question with the same word, the exact same character string 3 times, you will get 3 different answers. And that's fundamentally different from the systems that we've sort of trusted for decades. That doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that we need to think harder about how to use them and understand what their limitations are.
Wow. Okay, so how do you train this AI intern to be useful for CI?
So I think we've all heard the terms prompt engineering and context engineering, right? So prompt engineering is about structuring what you ask and how you ask it. So giving it clear instructions, specifying the format of the output, setting certain constraints, all the kinds of things that you would do if you were telling an intern to get started on a research project, right? Look at this library. These sources might be interesting. Here's the kind of use this template as the report. Here's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. And then context engineering is the information that you give it to work with. So, hey, I want you to start on this research project. I got something just today where one of our customers has some, there's a particular format that slide format that they use when they're evaluating our robots. And I got an email that said, here's a copy of it. Why don't we create something like this proactively for our next product launch? Cool. And so, context engineering is what you give it work. So you'll see a lot of examples about like we've got, for example, our content manager at Locus has she has an AI agent that helps her, and part of the context that she has fed it is is our voice and style guide and other things that she's written before, so that its output will match sort of the corporate voice that we have and the branding that we have. So things like that. And the more relevant context you provide, it gets back to what I said in the previous answer, where an AI is very, very, very good at giving you an answer that looks right. And looks right and is right are not the same thing. But with with the right context, and with enough of the right context, and without too much of the right context, but that's another rabbit hole, you can narrow that gap between an answer that looks right and an answer that is right.
So, what guardrails do you put in place? I mean, how do you manage the AI assistant?
So I think it's I mentioned it a little bit. You need to be explicit, right? Explicitly say things like, "Do not make factual claims that you can't cite. Give me citations for your sources. If you can't find evidence for a particular claim, just say you don't know, right? Don't make things up. Show me where you got this information." And then also the other thing I do, and this gets back to what we were saying earlier about an expert in the loop, is that I tend to steer away from any kind of, especially when I'm sending an AI chatbot off on a research task. I don't want it to do any synthesis, and I want it to do as little summarization as possible. Give me the information that you find, over deliver that information. Give me 20,000 words. Let me read it and decide what's important, because I understand more about our competitive landscape and what our competitors are thinking than what you can infer from information that you get on the raw internet. But I don't have time to go as deep on finding this stuff as you can. So give me all of that information, and then I will look it over with my judgment and my understanding as the person who's running the competitive program at Locus, to know what's important, and I will ultimately review and edit and provide that synthesis. So that human in the loop never goes away. I can get back 20,000 words in 5 minutes. But that helps me give another great example. I had a VP ask me an offhand question about one of our competitors, and like, are their growth numbers really legit? Like, we're sort of tracking, like, the brochure from a year ago, they said they had this many sites, and then a year later they said they had this many sites. Does that seem legit to you? And I could build a sort of multi-hundred word prompt to sort of sick the agentic dogs on that question. And my response to this VP was, initially was like, "Hey, my gut says it's legit, but let me do a little bit of looking and get back to you." And then about an hour later, a few minutes later, I had a 20-page answer from ChatGPT. I read it, I looked at it. A lot of it didn't make sense, but some of it did, and it found sources that would have taken me days to find on my own, or wouldn't have even known where to look. But I picked it out, and then I was able to get back to them. I did not share that sloppy output with them because it was full of garbage, but I picked out the nuggets that actually made sense and that were real and that were backed up by legit sources, and I used that for a more thorough answer to say, "Hey, remember how I said I thought it was legit? My gut was right. It is legit. Here are the sources. Here's what they're saying."
Excellent. Savo, I think we could spend all day talking about this. Enthusiastic comments in the chat. I hope you get a chance to read them.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we do have to move on, but we're moving into a great section, and that is about CI books in 2025.
Thanks, Sabo.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
The next segment does highlight CI books that were published in 2025. Our next guest needs no introduction to the CI community. Ellen Naylor is an award-winning pioneer of competitive intelligence and the queen of win-loss analysis. My words. Her first book, Win-Loss Analysis: How to Capture and Keep the Business You Want, was published in 2016 and is available in print and ebook editions. She's here with us today to discuss her latest book, Loosen Their Lips: How to Capture the Information You Seek During a Conversation, which explores the world of elicitation techniques and the importance of human engagement in competitive intelligence. Ellen, thanks for joining us. Oh, I can't hear Ellen. Can anybody else?
Ellen is not muted in Zoom.
Hear me now?
We got you
Now
now.
we can hear
There she
you.
is.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on
Yes.
this bad computer because it works better on Zoom, so I apologize. I'll just put my
Not a
face really
problem.
close to the speaker. Good morning, good
Great.
afternoon, good evening. I'm having a great day. How about you all?
Excellent. It's going great. Ellen, let's talk about your book. I've got like a twofold question. Why did you write the book and why now?
Well, I wrote the book and the why now are very related. The why now is because of what we just talked about. AI is reigning supreme. It's another rung in our technology advances that often makes us forget to talk to another human. And also, we talk to another human less often, so we have less practice at it. I think, however, though, some of the youngest people are best at talking to other humans, could teach some of the those in middle age how to do it better. However, in my case, I grew up only being able to talk human to human. And so this is 40 years of my experience doing this and being trained on it, like from people like John Nolan of Confidential, and realizing, gee, I'm doing this already. I didn't know what this was. And that's very true for elicitation for a lot of people. However, if you realize, oh, it isn't just words, it's body, it's actions, the body doesn't lie. So I think it's really important, and why I did it today is it's important that we remember humans really matter, and it's important to be able to connect with them quickly, efficiently, ethically, and with kindness. And that is another reason I wrote the book today, because kindness, sadly, is in short order.
Wow. So, having said all that, who's your target audience with this book?
Well, CI professionals is one target because that's the audience I know, and that's been my life since 1985 as a full-time person. However, probably who benefits the most from this is sales. Anybody who is in sales or marketing or product marketing, they need to know how to connect with other people. People in sales in particular have very much benefited from elicitation because they often aren't very good about planning their calls, their sales calls. They just kind of go do them, and they're not often enough very good at doing things like listening. They're too busy talking. Okay, shutting that down. Sorry. It never fails. I get a spam phone call in the middle of giving a talk.
It's probably one of your interviews calling you back right now. We're distracting you from closing an interview.
No, honey, it's probably spam. Let's be real here. But having a sense of humor is very important in life, and I find it's not in short order here. And having good intentions, and I think I will share that and probably close because you need to move on, is my intention when I talk to a fellow human being, and that includes all of you today, is I want you to feel better at the end of our conversation than when we said hello. That was life-changing for me as an interviewer of people, having that positive intention and also getting grounded before having a conversation. However you get grounded, whether it's meditation, it's Tai Chi, it's prayer, it's whatever it is, you get to figure that out. I write about that some in my book, but there's a whole lot out there on that. So thanks for having me, and long live the human being, huh? Let's not lose our humanity in today's transactional business environment increasingly, which is sad to me. Relationships, they aren't being focused on as much. It's just really obvious when you look how win-loss is evolving today, to having a computer do it. I think that's a shame. I understand it. I get it. But win-loss has always been relational in my book. And I'm sadly noticing that is evolving to something else.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ellen. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I'm
Ellen.
glad you could finally hear me. Bye.
Great to see you.
Despite having active CI groups, many organizations struggle to deliver useful strategic insights because they ultimately fail to trigger any meaningful executive action. Next up, CI fellow Craig McHenry will review the book by Arik and Derek Johnson entitled The Missionary and the Mercenary: Right Questions, Better Future. Craig will share how the Johnson brothers examine the productive tension between competing internal mindsets that can be harnessed to bridge the gap between abstract truth and operational utility. Craig, thanks for joining us.
I don't hear
I
Craig.
can't hear Craig. Craig, I can't hear you.
That one more time.
Nope.
Not yet. Still nothing.
He might be buried in snow.
Craig, tell you what, we're going to move on to the next one. And if you want to go off and then come back, maybe we'll catch you at the end. Okay.
Oh, he went off video. Yeah. Disconnect. No, reconnect.
Okay. Let's move on and we'll come back to Craig.
Very good. Well, then let me get my run of show back here. Is Ryan? There's Ryan. Hey, Ryan.
Good.
All right.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Up next, Ryan Sorley is joining us to discuss his book, Blind Spots, The Ultimate Guide to Building a Better Win-Loss Program. Ryan's the VP of Win-Loss and a co-founder at Clue and a leading authority on win-loss and churn research programs. Ryan, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, what's your backstory and how'd you get into
Testing.
win-loss?
Yeah, my backstory is coming from traditional research firms working at Forrester, Gartner before launching a win-loss firm called Double Check, which was bought by Clue 3.5 or so years ago. So I spent a lot of time working with technology decision makers while at Gartner and Forrester, helping them look at different options, and heard a lot of frankly, horror stories about their experience with different technology sales teams and vendors selling to them. So I saw this opportunity to step away from those traditional firms and start my own to be able to bridge the gap. And I came at win-loss really from the perspective of sales, being a former sales VP over there at Gartner.
So is that who it's mostly targeted towards, is towards sales teams and sales leadership?
I didn't know at first. I knew as a former sales leader that I could have used win-loss back at Gartner, but it turned out that product marketing and CI really what became the target, given that it was a core part of their role and their interest in collecting that data and using it for different go-to-market strategy discussions, using it for board meetings, sales enablement. Those folks seem to really be the target.
What do you hope people will take away after reading the Blind Spots book?
I think that it's a fundamental book, so it's really written for people who are unsure about win-loss. Maybe they've been asked to run a program for the first time. Maybe they're younger in their career as it relates to product marketing or CI, and they're really looking to build a foundation. So it's great for those folks. It's also good for people who are looking to pass something along to their leadership team to help them get buy-in from the leadership team on the importance of win-loss programs, and ultimately the roadmap for how to execute.
Well, my final question for you today, Ryan, is we've been talking a lot about AI. It's on everybody's lips, and I'm curious about your take on how AI is changing win-loss and what the future of win-loss powered by AI might look like, and where humans stand. And that continues with our last guest just listed.
So I think that what I heard already today was about kind of the data, right? And is it reliable data? Should we be using that data to mix into all of the other data we have to be able to come up with some sort of an analysis? And I think my view is less about whether or not we should do that. I think there's a lot of discussion that we've had as to the pros and cons, but my view is more about how can we use AI as an enabler to collect the data? So we, as an example, have an AI interviewer that we have built, and we're using that data, that tool to go out there and collect a lot of data at scale in different languages, 24/7. It's not nearly as deep as a human interview, but if we're looking to collect a large quantity of data in a short amount of time, it presents an opportunity for us to do that. So when I look at AI, it's not about replacing win-loss. It's about complementing win-loss by adding another type of data source to an already rich data source that's generated from human connection, as Ellen said, human-to-human interviews.
Right on. Well, Ryan, thank you for being here today. I wish we had more time. We'll have to get you back on a future Fellows webinar as a standalone guest, but check out the chat. The chat is completely on fire. Chat, you guys are doing a great job out there. Lots of fantastic observations. Ryan, jump back in there. And Do we have Craig back? Is Craig's audio working?
I think so.
Hey, we got
Excellent.
Craig. All right, I'm going on mute. Tracy, it's all yours. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Eric. And thank you also, Ryan. Craig, thanks for joining us. Glad we worked out the audio. So without further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about the Brojo's book?
Absolutely. Well, if you, like me, are a CI veteran, you've seen thousands of comprehensive reports that go absolutely nowhere. You know the drill. The data is clean, the charts are pretty, but the C-suite leaders just stare at you and say, well, so what? Well, Arik and Derek Johnson's book, The Missionary and the Mercenary, hits that specific pain point very hard. But don't let the title or the family business backstory fool you into thinking that this is some soft and fuzzy memoir. At the core, the book is about the productive friction required to actually make intelligence matter in the boardroom. The authors break down two internal archetypes, two that we all recognize. You've got the missionary, the one obsessed with the why, the ethics, the pure pursuit of truth. And then you've got the mercenary, the pragmatist, the one who only cares about how much and whether the ship is sinking today. Just as when listening to sound or music, whether rock and roll, voice, or classical, the knobs for bass and treble help you adjust to various frequencies so that sound you hear is perfect. So too the same for the missionary and the mercenary. Sometimes you need equal amounts of both, and at other times, one versus the other is more important. Now, most management books will tell you to align these people. Arik and Derek basically say that's a mistake. You don't want them aligned, you want them locked in a room together to challenge each other and bring out the best thoughts around a particular issue or strategy. That third strand of their book, derived from their parents, Bob and Honey, isn't just fundamental, sentimental fluff, but rather a governance framework. It's what keeps the missionary's view from becoming an irrelevant academic and the mercenary view from becoming a short-sighted hack. For CI professionals, embracing that tension is where the real insight lives. The real meat for CI professionals is how they handle Jan Carrion's key intelligence topics. We've all used kits and they're the bedrock of the industry, but the Johnsons argue that kits often lead to findings, and findings are passive. They're just news. Arik and Derek push for a shift to control factors. Now, it may sound like a small semantic change, but it's a total shift in mindset. A control factor asks, what lever can the executive actually pull? If your intelligence doesn't provide a variable the company can actually change or influence, it's a waste of time. It moves us from being people who know things to people who enable action. Then there's the superiority analysis. In CI, we often talk about market share or brand power in broad strokes. The Johnsons drag it down to the segment level. They argue that a segment appraisal reveals the brutal truth of your strategy. If you're dominating the segment you didn't even mean to target, your strategy is basically an accident. And if you're losing in your priority segment, your execution is a lie. No need to think of this as just a story about two brothers. Read it as a manual on surviving under certainty. Yes, you will read about that annoying modern reality where we have more data than ever, but less actual clarity. If you're tired of your CI work being ignored, the missionary versus the mercenary framework will give you a way to inject some much needed agency back into your analysis. Definitely pick up the book and you will enjoy it. Tracy?
Greg, thank you so much. I have a bazillion questions. Unfortunately, I don't have a bazillion minutes left in the day, so I'm going to have to move on. But thank you so much for that awesome review. In case anybody didn't notice, one of the authors is my co-host today, Arik Johnson. So let's look ahead very quickly to some of the things that we have to look forward to in 2026. One thing that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention are the upcoming conferences, because this is something that I see in the community as an ask very often. Where are the conferences? Where should I go? When are they? So just real quickly, a rundown first half and second half of the year of the conferences that you can anticipate. The Competitive Marketing Summit is going to be held in Denver. We had an excellent summit last year, also in Denver. Ben Shearer, who's a fellow, runs this summit. We have master classes on the 16th and then the conference itself on the 17th and 18th. To me, this is one of those, if you have to pick one to go to, this might be the one to go to. Then we understand that SCIP, the Strategic Consortium of Intelligence Professionals, is holding a forum in Singapore in May. In June, the International Association for Intelligence Education is holding their conference in North America in Georgia. Arik, did you want to weigh in on that one real quick?
I was just going to say I've been to an IAFE meeting a couple times in the past, even though I'm not an academic teaching intelligence. I know how to sneak my way into a meeting, and they're excellent, fantastic, pedagogy of how to teach, new and experienced professionals how to do intelligence work at a much higher level. So I can't, if anybody has anything to do with teaching intelligence to people new to the field or reskilling people in some of more of the state of the art stuff, IAFE is a great place to find that.
Thank you very much. Just also for your information, if you're not following chat, Nishant is going to put the links to all these conferences in chat for you. So moving on, the ICI is that's the Institute of Competitive Intelligence, also run by a fellow, Rainer Micheli. They're holding the Competitive and Market Intelligence Conference in Frankfurt. It's an interesting dynamic. Rainer has a fantastic format for this, like pre-work, conference work, and post-work. You should check out their website. I think that promises to be a great conference in Europe. Then the second half of the year, we start out with GRIT in Chicago. Arik, why don't you tell us a little bit about GRIT?
Yeah, we had the inaugural GRIT meeting this last September. Aurora teamed up with our colleagues at Proactive and Commentelli, both run by principals who are also fellows here at Council of CI Fellows. And we had a fantastic event. It was really an all storyteller event, people from the corporate world coming in and really talking about the ups and downs of their careers. And in fact, that's the only promo that I'm going to do for the meeting, being that it's 8 months away, is we are still seeking storytellers. So if you know of someone that you would recommend coming in to tell stories about intelligence work in corporate, you are someone who does that yourself, or just want to nominate somebody you think that would be interesting, visit the grit.vip website. Let us know. You'll be able to find us there, or just Google my name, send it to me, or anybody from Proactive or Commentelli as well would be happy to receive your recommendations.
Great. Thank you, Arik. AFI is going to have their European conference in London in September, and also Pharma CI, which is a big conference for anybody in pharma and biotech, will be in Newark, which is a center for pharma industry. Otherwise, I don't know why anyone would want to have a conference in Newark. No offense to people from Newark, but and then hot off the press, people, the Council of CI Fellows is going to hold a CI summit in September. That's going to be virtual. And we're looking forward to sending you more information. Sorry, from somebody just I saw in chat was offended and they're from Newark. My apologies. But the summit
Don't mess with
is
Newark, Tracy.
Yeah, I know. I shouldn't.
Asking for it.
I've been to it many times. So the fellows, back to the Fellows Summit. Look for more information in LinkedIn in the coming weeks and months, but we're really excited about that event. From what we understand, SCIP is going to have another conference or forum in Silicon Valley at the end of September. And then for anyone in Europe or even in the States, Simicon Europe is a great conference held in Berlin every year at the beginning of October. I don't have a website for them that's safe. If you search on it and can get to their website without getting a block from your browser security, let me know. But I have been to Simicon and it's an awesome event. Moving on super quick. I just wanted to bring up some educational opportunities. People are often asking or Googling or searching for information on how they can get better educated around competitive intelligence. There are two different certification programs that we're aware of, the Academy of Competitive Intelligence and the Institute of Competitive Intelligence. The Academy is in Boston, ICI is in Germany. Check out their websites for more information. And a couple of other areas where you might look, we have an upcoming webinar series. Look for more information on the CI Fellows/events website. We also have a lot of resources on the CI Fellows webpage that you should check out as well. Papers, um, presentations, things of that nature around different CI fundamentals. And finally, Skip is, while we haven't seen a lot of information out of Skip lately, they do have a repository of great information on CI fundamentals on their website. Check them out under skip.org/resources. I know we only have a few minutes left, so just real quickly, wanted to let you know at the Fellows, we created an Ambassador of Practice program this year, which is taking the energy and the talents of people in the CI community and harnessing it with the Fellows programs to act as kind of a force multiplier to support the CI profession. You can find out more information about that on our website. We also have a mentorship program that we've been broadcasting on LinkedIn. We're looking for people who want to be mentees, who want to be mentored. We've got over 2,000 years of combined expertise and experience in the Fellows, and we want the community to be able to tap into that. So look for information on the mentorship program, again, on our CI Fellows website. And finally, Andrew Burshkins is putting a white paper together that will be published in September around the idea of how the C-suite, what their mindsets are in getting CI information. And from that, it's going to drive CI practitioners to understand better where we need to scale up or where we need to hone our talents, or even more importantly, just how we need to better deliver into the C-suite. But I want to leave you tonight with a few remarks, and I'm going to pass that off to Arik. For me, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate all your attendance and even more so your participation in the chat. I hope you'll join us again next month for our next webinar in our series. Arik, over to you.
Tracy, what a pleasure working with you on this and getting ready for this. You did everything perfectly. All I had to do was show up and do my bit. So thank you, Tracy, for your leadership, putting this great format together. I hope everybody will join for the next one. You know, the thing that really jumped out at me about AI and its intersection with CI, lots of talk, I think, a few years ago about how the robots are going to displace us and the robots are going to take over and there won't be humans doing this work anymore. And in talking with Tracy about it and, just really covering this idea of, where humans come in, it struck me that it's less like cyborgs, humans sort of, with implants and whatnot. And it's more kind of like the bionic woman. And I don't know, Tracy, you'll probably remember a character named Jamie Summers from the mid 1970s. If you were an action fan like me, I watched, the young Lindsay Wagner portray a tennis pro who had a tragic skydiving accident, got an eye and an arm and a leg and a whole bunch of other stuff replaced with machines. And I think that's a little more accurate. It's this bionic future that I think is going to govern a lot of the immediate next several years of AI utility in the world of competitive intelligence. And then really how intelligence gets done in a much, much faster with a tremendous amount of greater possibilities. I think that's the thing. I see a quantum future for what it is competitive intelligence practitioners are doing today, where you're really exploring potential scenarios and then looking for backcasting the indicators that indicate that a scenario is emerging. A lot of that was done at tremendous human intelligence effort. I think artificial intelligence gives us the ability to do that in a much, much better way. So in many ways, I see this bionic future essentially as giving us superpowers. But still, a human is required. And the reason a human is required is because you can't imprison or fire your AI. Accountability and responsibility will always be a necessary element in the value chain for intelligence work, particularly when recommendations, action, and results are on the line. And negative results taken from bad actions and bad recommendations will have consequences. So there'll always be a human there to pay the consequences because you can't fire or put your AI in jail. With that, Tracy, I'm going to just thank everyone on your behalf for being here. On behalf of all of the Council of Competitive Intelligence Fellows, Happy New Year. Here we are almost at the end of the first month of 2026 already. We can't wait to see you on the next webinar, everyone. Chat, great job. We'll see you out there on the internet. Tracy, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arik. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, afternoon, or evening.